Welcome to the Barber Show. This is our English episode. Like I promised you, I'll be bringing in an episode in English once in a while here and there. And as you have come to know, for those who saw our last English episode, or maybe you've been following our Kinyarwanda episodes, this is a show that is interactive, it's motivational, it's inspirational, and we connect testimonies and experiences from the youth and the elderly, and we are basically trying to bridge a gap between both generations, hoping that the testimonies, the experiences, the knowledge shared on this platform can impact our lives for the better. So I welcome you to this episode in English. And like most of you are aware, we are in the 100 days of commemoration. We are commemorating for the 27th time the genocide against the Tutsis in 1994 in Rwanda. And it is through these 100 days that we remember, we unite, and we renew. For this month of April, I have been thinking a lot about what I've been seeing. I've been seeing a lot of genocide denial on media, on different platforms, and it got me thinking. It's been 27 years later. There are facts, like our president, His Excellency Paul Kagame said, les faits sont têtus. There are facts that are there. They are stubborn. They're there, they're in our faces, but we have a lot of genocide denial going on. And it got me thinking, as we enter these 100 days, it got me thinking, what is the whole chemistry, let me call it chemistry, but what is the whole philosophy around genocide denial? And it is in that perspective that I have invited a tough critic of the Western media when it comes to genocide denial and genocide deniers to come and speak to us, unpack for us what the genocide is to begin with, what the genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda looked like, and what the genocide denial does for Rwandans in the present and in the future. So I've invited Dr. Lonzen Rugira. There is so much to say about Lonzen, but I'll give him the space to introduce himself and tell us what he does as we delve into this discussion deeper. Dr. Lonzen, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I'm glad to be here. I've been hearing about your show, and
Thank you.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Yes. So what do you do?
Well, I'm a researcher, and the reason I actually have a background as an academic. So I started by teaching at, I taught a bit at Howard University, and also at University of Rwanda. So my background is really from academia. So I'm a teacher by instinct. So from when I left academia, I continued to see myself as a teacher. So wherever I am, I actually try to teach, at least to share what I know, and to learn as well. When you're a teacher, you're a learner as well. So I continue to write. As you know, I ran Pan-African Review, and before that I was a columnist as well. So the reason I write is because I want to teach, because I feel like I need to share what I know. And so I do research so that I get to know. And when I know, I share.
You want to share what you've known.
Yeah, so of course, because I need also to exist, subsist, the research I do, some of it is for the public good, and some of it is for personal existence in terms of, you know, whether I'm writing policies, whether I'm reviewing policies, whether I'm writing reports, whether I'm, so it is, but generally it's a pursuit that is grounded in this need to teach or to share what I know.
And you do a lot of that through your platform. So going to what we are discussing about on this episode, we are discussing about genocide denial. But before we talk about genocide denial, when people think of commemoration, when they think of the genocide, they go to the events of 1994. That's what, obviously, for reasons that are obvious for us, but that's what strikes their mind. But how can you unpack for us what a genocide is as we go deeper into denial?
All right, it is important, and the crime of genocide, the weight of the crime explains the passion of the denial. So they are linked together. The crime of genocide is the greatest crime that can be committed. There is no crime that is higher than genocide. And the reason it's the greatest crime that can be committed is because, and these are documented things from the definition of what genocide is, from the Genocide Convention, and so what makes genocide the mother of all crimes, or the greatest crime, is because it targets to uproot a people. So a group of people is identified, and there's an intent to destroy the entire group. So the option to not to be targeted for extermination is not there. You are not given the option to not be identified for extermination. So the characteristics that identify you to be targeted are things outside your control.
Yes.
Yes. So and which is different from somebody who may support a particular political group, who may support a particular religious group, who may support. So the ability to option out of death is not there, because you've been identified and locked into death. So that is what, and it is not an individual who has done a particular thing. It is a whole group that is targeted for being uprooted, and that is not particularly accused of particular crime or offense they've done. It's just their existence that is a crime. The fact that they exist is a crime. And so attacking such a people who are defenseless, in terms of the fact that you are being attacked for your existence, makes you defenseless. So the fact that there is no defense for your existence, it makes it the highest crime that can happen to people. And because of that, it is a crime that is done not only to the group that is being attacked, it's a crime against the entire humanity, because the entire humanity, they share that characteristic of existence as human beings. But if you are being identified to be removed for your existence, then you are attacking the entire humanity by attacking these particular people for the reason of their existence. Yeah, so that's why it's a crime against humanity, the entire humanity. So that's why everybody, wherever they are attacked just by virtue of attacking this particular group for that particular reason. So it is an assault against the entire humanity, not just these people. That's why when you, because it's so bad, heinous a crime, those who perpetrate it are very defensive. Because the greater the crime you have done, the more defensive and the more you wish to distance yourself from it. If I've stolen a piece of cake, it is okay. I may say, okay, I stole the cake, and I may say, you know, I was hungry, you know. But this crime has no defense. There's no justification, because there's no particular reason for which people are being attacked. So you can't defend the crime. So because there is no defense for the crime that you have committed, the best you can do is to deny that you committed it. So the extent with which it's the magnitude of the crime is the magnitude of the denial. So it is like a mirror image. It is so bad that you have to really entirely dismiss it for you to
use all the efforts,
yes,
all the tools, everything you can to deny it.
Yes, because it is what restores your humanity as well. Yeah, because the fact that you are identifying these people for elimination just for their existence robs you of your humanity as well, because you can't identify them as human beings. Your own humanity is gone by attacking people for being just human beings. So for you to restore your own humanity, you need to deny, you know, So they are very related.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the more you deny, the more you distort the facts, the more you... So you are fighting for your own humanity. Yeah,
to absolve your guilt.
Yeah, yes, for you to be still accepted as a full human. So your own. So the more you attack people for their existence as being human beings without any other crime they've committed, and the fact that there is no defense for that crime that you are committing, the more your own humanity is lost in that crime. So the extent of the crime itself it comes back to you, because you've done something so heinous that your own humanity is questionable. Yeah. So for you to restore your own humanity, you need to deny that heinousness. Yeah, your link to it, and the fact that it is not true, it didn't happen, and so on. So all that you are actually fighting for your own existence, in fact.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it like this before.
Yeah, that's why it becomes very emotional and very life and death for the denier, because their own validation of the humanity is tied to it.
Wow. Okay, now we are talking about denial, and you have seen the trend. Young people are denying the genocide. I would understand it, okay, not that I understand denial, but I would understand if the perpetrators, their fathers, their mothers denying it. But now we are seeing children in their 20s, well, youth in their 20s denying fervently.
Yeah, so I think...
How do we connect it to what you're saying? Is it for the absolution of guilt from their parents?
Well, that's part of it. First of all, we have to look at this thing called denial.
Yes.
And it happens in different forms.
Okay.
And the intent is different as well.
Okay.
And but everything that you do to minimize the genocide, to distort the facts about the genocide, to mock survivors, to everything that you do that brings doubt to the facts about the genocide is denial. Okay. So yes, so the intent of why you are doing what you do, it differs sometimes. There are people actually who do it intentionally. So the intent is to harm, the intent to mock the survivors, the intent is to justify the people who died as having called the death
upon themselves.
So yeah, so and there are some who are ignorant and lack knowledge. Yeah, so I think most of the young people, it is the fact that we have not been very good at educating what genocide is, and the moral weight that comes with what genocide is. So they are playing in a terrain that they don't master very well. So
there's a lot of ignorance.
There's a lot of ignorance, and that is what is the driving factor behind most of the genocide of the denial that's happening in the young people. The intent is not premeditated harm. Yeah, so it's ignorance, and the fact that our schools are not been very good at teaching what genocide is, and the moral implications of minimizing, of distorting, of a range of things that they are. But of course, it doesn't take away the fact that there are some who are driven by this desire to validate themselves, the fact that they are linked to the people who committed the genocide, so your father or grandfather, so on. So their own humanity is tied in there, and in denying, they try to recover their own humanity. So there are those there. So those are the premeditated denials in which their interests can be directly linked and traced. Okay. Yeah, yes.
So in your mind and experience, what do you think is the end game of the deniers?
Well, the end game is to validate themselves, because
after all this chaos and this noise, is that they walk out feeling more human?
Yes, the more they bring confusion, the more they bring people to doubt the facts, the more within that confusion they validate their humanity. So the more things are clear about the genocide, the more there are questions about their humanity, because of if you are a perpetrator, your own participation in the genocide. If you are a descendant of a perpetrator, that proximity to the criminal it brings a certain infamy. So you want to distort the facts so that that infamy is taken away. But that's why the education is would have been very important in this factor, in that the descendant of the genocide perpetrator, the best approach to recover their own humanity is to distance themselves from the criminal who is their relative. And that is to affirm the facts of the genocide. That is how the best way to recover their own humanity is to denounce the crimes and to affirm the facts of genocide. That's the surest path to them reaffirming their humanity.
Which requires some boldness and courage. When you distance yourself from a relative, it requires a lot of courage.
It's moral clarity. It's a matter of moral clarity, and it is something that our education systems should have been inculcating in young people. It is that the proximity to the criminals and the desire to protect and distort the facts and minimize and mock gens and so on, it does not help them recover their humanity. Actually, it is an illusion. It is like creating an alternative world, you know? Yeah. But their own humanity, the greatest path to their humanity is a rejection of the genocide ideology, a affirmation of the facts of the genocide, and a demonstration to their forebearers that they did wrong to society. Yeah.
I have seen you criticize a lot of the content that is published by Western media. I want to understand how, or help our followers understand how the Western media comes into play of this genocide denial equation.
It is actually related to what I just talked about. It's about the affirmation of the humanity. So we are not yet at the point where Westerners value African lives as fully human. So they still see Africans as subhuman, as people not worthy of full dignity. So the fact that they mock and they distort the facts, it's not that they don't know them or that they can't look for the facts, but the facts affirm the African humanity. And that is a question that they don't want to recognize. Because if they affirm the humanity of the African, they have to treat the African respectfully as an equal. And they're not ready for that.
So they will jump on the wagon of denying everything that...
Yes, so the distortion also works in their own ideology that refuses to recognize Africans as worthy of dignity.
Wow. So, Dr. Lonzen, is there a way we can help change the minds of genocide deniers, starting with the youth who are in their 20s? The people who are on social media, you see what they post on Twitter, you see what they're doing. Can we change their minds?
I think, first of all, we need to distinguish the categories of deniers.
Yes.
There are those that I just told you incidental. They find themselves denying without being fully informed and equipped about the facts about the genocide. And the denial that they are perpetrating without knowing they are doing so. The harm they are doing, they are not entirely in control, or it's not premeditated.
Okay.
It is ignorance. So the best way is to give them information, is to teach them. It's how, so it is to show them that denying is not a fad, is not, it doesn't make you cool, it's not, it actually brings your own questions about your own humanity.
Yes.
So it is, so then we know that category of young people who need information, and we look for avenues to get them the information. And we know the category that is premeditated. It is involved in denial. It's premeditated, and they know, and there's a utility in denial that is linked to their own lives. And we know that we can't change them, but we will continue to put out information that will discredit their narrative to the point that they recognize that their narrative is is as whenever the perpetrator, it is like someone who farts at a dinner table, you know. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so whenever you do it, you know that people are going to,
Yeah.
you're going to be ashamed. You're going to be castigated as someone who
How can you fart at a dinner table?
Yeah, who lacks basic decency.
Yes.
So they'll be there and they'll be at the fringe of society, and whenever they do it, they'll be ready to be seen as uncivilized and lacking basic decency. And that is what the goal should be.
So if we give them the knowledge, can we still change their minds?
No, there are those, like I said.
No, the young ones, the youth that is ignorant, we give them information. There is possibility that they can change their mind.
Yes, because as I told you, they are not aware that they are involved in genocide denial and the moral problems with which they are involved. They do not. They're not in control of the harm that they are causing. Yeah, and with information they can begin to, so you can raise their awareness, you can alter their consciousness to what genocide is, and how taking it lightly or minimizing it or belittling it is not only an affront to society, but you are fighting at a dinner table, you know. You understand?
Yes.
Yeah. So when the young people know this, they will be less likely to do it because they'll be seen that, you know, they are engaging in uncivilized behavior.
Yeah. And then those who premeditate, who plan for it, we keep giving them knowledge. We keep fighting their narrative.
Yes. We need to fight their narrative, because what we want is to ensure that they don't influence the others who are not invested in promoting that denial, for whom there is no clear interest to promote the denial. So we need to, the reason we give the other ones information is so that they are not confused by these ones. And the more we isolate these ones, the more they'll go into hiding.
It's a different scenario.
Yeah, that is it.
Okay. Yeah. Genocide denial is the last stage of the genocide, but it will take years. It takes years. And we have a long journey ahead of us. I mean, come to see what is happening. We are still recovering bodies of victims of the genocide against the Tutsi. What do you have to say to that?
Okay, well, what makes denial, actually, saying that it is the last stage also has certain implications. It is the last stage, but it is also the first stage of genocide. Yeah, because if you're not effective in fighting genocide denial, another genocide is starting. Yes, it is the last and first stage of genocide. Yeah, because if the denialists triumph, if their narrative triumph, another genocide will happen, because they will not have learned anything. Society will not have learned anything, and that they will see that eliminating a group of people in society is something that can be justified, that can be condoned, and nobody will hold them accountable. So it is the reason genocide denial is fought is to prevent the recurrence of another genocide. Yeah. So if you lose on the genocide denial battlefront, you prepare
another genocide.
Yes. And these are the consequences that young people need to understand.
Ah, okay. So if we don't fight genocide denial with all that we have, we are preparing our children, our grandchildren for something similar.
Yes. We prepare for another genocide that is even much more efficient, because the genocide deniers, one of the things they regret is the fact that they never finished the job. But now they will come better prepared
to finish
the job. Their goal now will be to be much more efficient, because now the fact that they feel like they are being challenged is because they never finished the job. If they had finished the job, nobody would be challenging them.
Wow.
Yeah, so when they triumph, they'll be much more efficient, because the intent will be to now be
finish the job.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
there is a lot of genocide denial going on social media, on Twitter. What do you have to say to that?
Well, actually, one, as I said, it is a lack of information, and part of it is because the people responsible for providing this information are not being very effective. The bodies that are mandated to teach, the universities and schools, and they're not being very good at seeing the threat that the genocide denial is, to be able to put it in curriculums, to be able to put out, to be involved in the media campaigns and so on. They're not very good. So the reason they're not very good has to do with the fact that there's a general attitude of we are still a mediocre society. So we don't try to excel in things we do. So they know they have the mandate
to do that.
Yeah, but you know, they will,
but it's going to cost us.
Yeah, they will wake up, you know, during April and they do some 2 events, 3 events, and you will not hear from them the rest of the year. You know, yeah.
Come to think of it, after the 100 days, we don't hear.
Yeah, yes,
we don't hear anything.
So you ask yourself, these bodies that are mandated to do what do they do the other months of the year? You know, because we never hear about them. We see them during the events of April, and so what do they do? Because these are not ad hoc committees that operate in April. They are they exist as institutions. So what do they do the rest of the year? So you know, so those are the institutions themselves. But you go to the schools, what are they doing? If young people are involved in genocide now, is it because they are rejecting the information they are getting in school, or is it because they're not getting any information in school? And I think it's because they're not getting any information in school. So whether it is secondary school, whether it is universities, even primary, you know, you should be able to give information about genocide according to where people are in their cognitive abilities. So you don't have to, you know, so the curriculum on genocide should be there starting from primary school, but to adjust it to the cognitive abilities of young people of that age. Secondary school, you add a little bit more content and you know, to a much more strengthened cognitive ability. University, a much more sophisticated and higher and higher. So there's this dereliction of duty that is happening in society, and it's part of the cause of the resurgency, you know, because the genocide deniers are feeling an empty void. So there's a void that they are feeling. Yeah. So if you fill that void, then they won't have anywhere to go.
What would you say to the youth who are following us right now, especially the youth in the diaspora who do not have this information as much as they should, and they are denying whether consciously or unconsciously? What would you say to them?
Well, I think that everyone has a responsibility to be informed. So ignorance is not something that should be celebrated. Yeah, so I think as young people, they should feel responsible to themselves to shun ignorance. And I think it's a starting point. So once you shun ignorance, you begin to look for information that makes you a, you know, responsible member of society, and the responsible member of society is someone who is informed. Yeah, and the information is out there for everyone to be informed.
As we close this conversation, what would you say in light of the 27th commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi? What message would you pass to our audience vis-a-vis what we just shared on genocide denial?
Well, I think that one, the institutions responsible for fighting genocide need to wake up and take it much more seriously. The schools need to be involved. People need to shun those who engage in it. You know, in Rwandan society, we have reached a point where if someone drops a bottle of water, people come saying, "What are you doing? Why are you dropping this? You are littering." If you drop a piece of paper, the same. Yeah. You know, if someone is involved in genocide denial, people should be able to call them out and say, "What are you doing?" You know, yeah. So we don't have that responsibility yet. You know, and I think that but that also awareness needs to be the same way people their awareness was raised about littering, the same way they are aware, because it is littering of the mental, it's a mind littering. Yeah, people are littering, you know. Yeah, so you need to create their awareness about the fact that they are littering mentally, you know. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And we need to, it's a collective effort.
Yes.
Each one of us is responsible to shun genocide denial.
Because the consequences affect all of us.
Yes.
There is no group that has not been affected by the genocide, whether it is the group of perpetrators or group of victims. So all of them have been affected by the genocide, one way or another. So the genocide affects everybody. So it is in everyone's interest to be involved in ensuring that it is not, its ideology is not perpetuated, because you can't be protected from it, you know.
No one will be spared.
No one is spared. So another thing that I think is important we need to tackle a bit before we leave is that in that resurgence of genocide, there's an effort, genocide denial, there's an effort to, they are entering into, because they know genocide denial directly is shunned, is something that is uncivilized. So they enter into denial through political criticism. So they pretend to be...
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. So yeah, it is a tactic of being political opponents. But when the real motive is to...
Deny.
Yeah, yes. So they see political activists, they, you know, and it's so interesting that you have people who are normally political activists who have been having a difficult time making progress in terms of influencing Rwandans, but they see the effectiveness of genocide ideology, that they've taken it up to be able to promote their own, you know, they talk about human rights, they talk about democracy and so on, but they have not been very effective because Rwandans are generally cohesive in terms of the leadership that they are. Yeah, so now they have embraced genocide ideology as an avenue to promote the version of democracy and human rights that they want, the same way that genocide deniers have embraced them and they pretended to be political activists when in fact they are. Yes, so there's a dance going on, you know.
Whoa.
Each
one is dancing to the other tune.
There's a tango, yes.
There's a tango going on.
There's a tango.
So it's not purely political activism. There is another agenda. And it's not genocide denial. It's political activism. Yes. It's political opposition.
Yes. Political activists have seen the potency of genocide denial, and they have seen that it is the easiest way to bring their political activism of human rights and Western democracy. They've seen that if they are denialists, then they'll get the ears. They can influence the minds of Rwandans. Now, so yeah, so mostly you have, you know, people like Nick Cheeseman, you know, and so Nick Cheeseman, who under normal circumstances, and his other colleagues, you know, under normal circumstances would not be a genocide denialist, but because he wants to engage Philip Rengen's audience, he has to enter into that audience through denial, because Rengens is a denialist. Yeah. Rengens is a denialist because he was an active participant in the regime that prepared and implemented the genocide. So Rengens has a direct interest in denying the genocide. But Rengens, because Nick Cheeseman wants to influence Rengens' audience, so he goes to promote human rights and democracy, his agenda, he needs a captive audience of Rengens that is interested in genocide denial. So he'll embrace Rengens' rhetoric of genocide denial to capture, to influence that audience. And because Rangians knows that the discourse on denying genocide cannot be done openly, it's anti-civil, it is unbecoming and indecent, he will use the rhetoric of Nick Cheeseman to talk about human rights and democracy when in fact he's promoting denial. Yes, so they are sophisticated.
we are not ready for that.
No, yeah, we need to be sophisticated as well. So to fight the denial, the more they become sophisticated, those who fight them need to be equally sophisticated. Yeah, so otherwise...
We need to also quickly see what is happening.
Yes, yeah. You need to be able to sieve through those games that they are playing. But that is what is happening on the ground.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for educating us. Thank you for educating me. Wow. Because you've answered some questions that I've always had. Maybe if we quickly talk about it, I've always looked at the opposition of our country. Some of them fought against the genocide, and you see them working with genocide denialists, and I've never understood that. But thank you for highlighting the tango dance going on, and we need to be sophisticated. We need to be sophisticated. What message would you have as we close for the audience following us in this 27th commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi?
As always, it is a difficult time. It is a time to remember that there are people who are going through tough times. There are people who are remembering their loved ones, and we are called upon to be cognizant of that and to be conduct ourselves with the requisite sensitivity. It is a time to reflect as a society and to think about this tragedy and to commit to never having this kind of situation, because it doesn't solve any problem. And the people who thought that they could solve problems by eliminating the people, it needs to be understood that it was a political bankruptcy, because it was not a solution. So we can never have solutions through eliminating, a section of society, through... So the times should really be about reflecting and committing to ensuring that we live in a society in which we shun that kind of past, the past that led us to this kind of conclusion. But for us to be able to shun that past, we need to first recognize that we need to, as a collective, as a society, to know that that was a problem, Yeah, so genocide commemoration is not about Hutus or Tutsis. No, it is about all of us together understanding that that thing was a tragedy. That was a tragedy. That is something that should not have happened. Whether you're Hutu, whether you're Tutsi, you should really be able to reflect on that and say that should never have happened. And so until we understand in our consciousness that something so tragic and so abominable happened and it is not justifiable in any way, until we all reached that point as a society, until we have that an understanding, we cannot ever be sure that it can't happen again. So our job should be to reflect at every levels of society, to reflect, to have ownership, collective ownership of that tragedy. And we are not there yet. So April comes and people think it's about Tutsis. It is not. It is not. It is about a failure of society. It is a failure of society, and this failure that we have not as a society yet owned up to. We still need to convince people to own up to this failure of society. This is a collective failure as a people of Rwanda. We failed. We failed. And so until we understand that, all of us, that we failed, we will fail again.
And we don't want to happen. We don't want it to happen again.
Yes. And it will happen. We risk it happening again, because until you recognize the problem, you can't really prevent its recurrence. Yeah. So you need to have the sensibilities of the problem and the weight of the problem, and understand the failings as a people. You know, this thing transcends Hutus and Tutsis. It is a failing as a people, as a society, a collective failure, and to which we need to all of us recognize and then commit that, you know, we are better. Yeah. Or we can be better. And
we should do better.
We should do better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lonzen. You have heard him say it. It's our responsibility. It's our moral call for all of us to fight. There is something Lonzen said that blew my mind away. The genocide denial is the first and the last stage. If we don't fight the genocide denial last stage, we are actually preparing our children to go through this again, and we don't want that. So it's our responsibility to shun this. It's our responsibility to seek knowledge and know and understand what really happened in Rwanda. Thank you so much for following. It's always a pleasure to host this show every Sunday, every week. And like Lonzen said, this is a difficult time we're going through. As we commemorate, as we remember our loved ones, let's fight genocide denial. Let's remember, let's unite, and let's renew. As I always conclude every episode, I'll say this: may God bless you. Thank you for following.